But today we start off with the first of 3 webinars, which are to follow tomorrow and the after as well. And this is really meant to help a lot of the newer teachers who are joining perhaps our fraternity online, as well as also to refresh many of us who have been teaching online and to share newer ways, newer techniques, newer ideas as we go forward. So on that note, I'm going to begin. Joining me today is my colleague, whom you all know, Shoma. Today's session, though, I must explain, is exceedingly simple. It's meant there are a couple of videos that I'm going to take you through and share with you. And then, of course, we will pick up a different set of objectives for tomorrow. So starting today, this is our first set of objectives where we look at lesson planning, lesson staging, and how to adapt materials. And we're going to do this and talk about this through the various tools and platforms that we will be sharing with you. So this is normally the first stage for any of us before we even go online, is to think how will a lesson happen, and once we've planned it all out, to then look at how do we stage it, and then of course as teachers to keep continuously working with materials. So that is where we stand right now. So on that note, let's look at lesson planning. Now, it's very important that when we look at lesson planning, the first thing to keep in mind is that it's very easy to lose track of time. So when you sometimes sit down and you are thinking of a lesson, the mind would wander or there would be stray thoughts that happen. So one practical way to stop you from feeling overwhelmed is to use something known as the Pomodoro technique, which actually looks like that. I will post the link in the chat to some of these materials as well. But essentially the Pomodoro technique revolves you around setting time limits to do your work. So say for an example that you have 1.5 hours to plan your lessons. You set yourself a time limit of example, let's say 25 minutes. And during those 25 minutes, you only focus on the task in hand. So you turn off your phone and all other distractions. And after 25 minutes, you give yourself a 5-minute break and come back and complete the rest of the lesson planning. Now, there are, of course, this is just one particular technique that's called, but there are plenty of other apps and softwares that can help you in kind of zoning in and setting timers and helping you just focus on the task at hand. In fact, one such other software or app that you could use is called iLeo, which is E-Y-E-L-E-O. Simple enough app that can actually help you set time limits on the work you're doing. So this is about setting a time limit on the outside so that to help you contour what you're going to do. Now, when it comes to lesson planning, it's very important to set very realistic expectations, all right? Every time you add the word, I want to do this and that, it becomes a whole new set of objectives that you want. So that and can be very dangerous. So it's very important that when you're teaching online, your activities that you plan normally would land up taking a lot longer. So one thing to understand is to keep your set very realistic expectations, be less ambitious until you get the complete hang of how much time it's going to take. And it's also important to understand that teaching online is tiring for all concerned, for teachers particularly, as well as for students. So hence, be realistic about what you want to achieve out of each lesson. Thereafter, please clarify your aims. This is important both for yourself as well as for your students. When teaching online, like we mentioned, the activities can be quite long and would even take sometimes longer than you had anticipated. So you must be sure that if you've got a very set list of objectives, that you're working towards that and that alone. All right. The next thing you want to think about is how to adapt your existing materials. And over here, it's very important to again understand that engaging a classroom online is a whole different set of challenges. In our physical classrooms, there is a lot of energy because we are all physically present. But with online classrooms, multiple screens in multiple homes with multiple students, they all create additional diversions. So it's very important to hold the attention or the focus of our learners. And for this, it's important to use things like interactive activities, such as like polls and quizzes and feedback sessions, and so on. So we're now also going to look at how can we make things a little simpler while communicating, or while at least in the important part of passing on instruction. In a traditional classroom, it kind of all comes together. And while that may be good from an energy point of view, it's sometimes the purpose and the focus can get a little lost in all of that. But with blended learning that we now refer to, wherein we can combine some elements of it pre-lesson and incorporate different elements during the lesson to maximize time and effort, we can use a lot of technology. And one such thing that I'd like to share with you today is something called screencasting. Now, I can understand that if you have been doing this for a few months, you're quite well versed with all the various screencasting options. But if this is new to you and this is your first time, or if you've heard about it and never tried it, then today is perhaps the chance to zoom in just on one of them and to actually make some notes as we go along. So I'm going to share with you a video just now, which has been compiled by colleagues in London, to actually talk you through how you can screencast. All right, so please, if you'd like to keep a paper or book and a pen handy, and you want to grab it just now, please do that. You will get some really important notes and tips through the various videos that I'm sharing with you today. And of course, needless to say, we will make recordings of this webinar available to you as well. So let's look a little bit more now at what screencasting is all about.
Everyone, my name is Gina and I'm here today to talk to you about screencasting. So screencasting, what is it? Essentially, it is recording what is happening on your screen. That could be a lesson, it could be instructions, anything. Whatever you are doing on your screen can be recorded and then later shared with students. There are a variety of applications and software packages available at the moment for screencasting. These are some of them. I've chosen to use Loom because for me it's the most accessible and the easiest to use. So most people should not have too much difficulty when trying to create and edit their own videos. What can we use screencasting for? Currently, there are many students studying from home, so perhaps when students are absent or unable to access your classes, then if you have created recordings of them, then they will be able to access them later. Also, they're useful for students to go back and review and revise what has happened in class. Video clips, instructional video clips are also really useful because you can create instructions for example, handouts that you want completed for homework. It can be much quicker just to create a quick video clip and send that to students so they know what to do. One of my colleagues later will be talking about audio-visual feedback, which can be given via videos like this, much faster for teachers to get through giving feedback. They're very useful for grammar explanations and other videos and tutorials that you might want to carry out. Not only are they useful for teachers, but also for students. We often give students group work and research projects to carry out together, and then they can record their presentations and give them back to you as a screencast, as it were. So they can also be really useful for students too. Before you start screencasting, you have to think about what is the purpose of my screencast and who is it for? Is it a lesson, an activity, or a how-to guide? And is it for students or is it for other teachers? Answering these two questions before you even start will enable you to design a screencast suitable for the purpose you want it to achieve. Before you screencast, as I've done today, it's important to prepare an outline of what you want to say. It's really important to find a quiet space where you're not going to be interrupted by anyone, by a phone, for example, and also clear your screen of everything else. I'm sharing this PowerPoint, but you might be sharing your actual desktop, and so you don't want too much visual noise on there. Also mute any notifications so that if you do get emails while you're creating your screencast, notifications of those won't appear in your recording. Remember to adjust your microphone and to decide whether you want the webcam on or off. Sometimes it's not necessary to have your webcam on because perhaps you want the students to focus on the content rather than on you. So, if you Google Loom, it will take you to the home page where you can just register and log in for a free account. From there, it's really simple and easy to create your first screencast. All you have to do is click New Video. When you click New Video, you'll have options of whether you want to share your screen and your camera, or screen only, or camera only. You decide what's most suitable for the screencast you're creating. Check that your audio is working, and you can see down here the video of you will appear, but you can stop your video from appearing if you want to. You can also pause the recording, and this button will change to a tick, and you would just click there when you want to stop recording. So start when it's an arrow and stop when it's a tick. Once you've completed your video, it will appear on the screen, and you can go into settings and trim and do various editing functions in here. For the moment, I've only really used trim, but you can play around with it and see how you can get these different functions to work for you. It's really simple. Once you've finished editing, in the top corner of your screen, it will say send your video. You can either copy the link and email that out to students, or put it up on your Edmodo page or whatever educational platform you're using, or you can invite people by using their emails. You can also add a password for security if you don't want to be shared far and wide. While you're screencasting, it is really difficult to talk to a computer screen, but try to be as natural as you can and don't worry about any slips or mistakes. You can either leave them, nobody's perfect, or you can trim them out with the editing functions and use the pause button if you need to. After screencasting, watch the video and take notes. Trim and cut the video, polish up any edits, and you can save the video file as an MP4 if you want to have a record for yourself. Or, as I said, just copy the link and send to students or post up on your learning platform. Hopefully you found this useful and will be able to incorporate screencasting into your teaching. I hope you have fun with it, and I hope your students do too. Thank you.
All right, so this was a little bit about screencasting, and just for those of you who are joining us, we were talking today about lesson planning, lesson staging, and adapting materials. And this is the first of 3 webinars, and this is webinar 1 with 2 and 3 to follow tomorrow and the day after. Now, screencasting that we were referring to in this video is a technique or a great way for you to record perhaps the instruction of a lesson or the teaching material from your screen with your voice being provided over, and to create a recording of that and send perhaps to students in advance so that they can read up, or they can prepare, or they can watch your video and perhaps do some background work before they come into a classroom. And when they are in the classroom, then you're just busy with perhaps offering clarity and clarifying their practice work and so on and so forth. So moving from screencasting now, we're going to look at an LMS, or a learning management system. Now, many of you are quite familiar with the multiple versions that are there of different companies. There's one that we feel that works particularly well, which is Edmodo. It is free, and it's an educational network that kind of lets you have all your content in one place, and also helps you to communicate with students as well as with parents. So what can Edmodo do? Well, in a nutshell, through the app or through the website, whichever one you're using, teachers can basically share content, texts, videos, homework, assignments with students online. And like I mentioned, having everything in one place for you, it's like an online kind of repository of all your material, which you can piecemeal out whenever you need per the lesson that you're using. Of course, not just Edmodo, but any virtual communication software like Zoom or Microsoft Teams or Google Meet would also allow you the additional flexibility of using whiteboards to be able to communicate in a live way instruction, as well as also for students to use the annotate function to perhaps underline or share with you something that they've understood or what they've not understood. So moving on from here, since Edmodo is new for many people, we thought we'd kind of put together a little video of a teacher talking you through how Edmodo works. And that is what I would like to share with you now.
There are many online resources and educational networks out there, but today we're going to look at just one called Edmodo, which I've enjoyed using with my classes. It's a site where you can upload materials, homework, texts, photos, videos, and the students can do the same. They can upload their homework to you, you can set assignments, you can set the date, and it just makes life much easier having everything in one place for all your classes. So I'm going to take you there and show you a little bit of how to use it. Okay. The first thing you'll need to do is sign up and create an account. So you'd sign up as a teacher first, and then you'll get the page and you'll create your classes. For each class, you'll be given a class code, which you then pass on to your students so they can create their account. They enter the code here and all their details. And after you've created the account, you'll be able to also connect to the parent or guardian of the teacher so they can follow the student's progress. Okay, once you've done that, you'll need to go to your own page and you'll see you've got a list of classes here. So once you've created your groups, as I say, you get a class code. You can lock it so other people can't join and you can just invite them, or you can leave it open so people can see the code and pass it on. Now you can use the page kind of as a Facebook page to put up what you've done that day as a reference point. You can post links to videos you think that kids would like. You can set very simple homework on the chat. Here I'm just asking for them to say true or false and write 3 sentences of their own. So they could do that here. They could put number 1, true, number 2, false, etc. and post it as their reply. So that's a very simple way for them to do very basic homework. If you want to do something more involved, you can create an assignment. Just click here, click new, and you can create an assignment. Give it a title. I'm going to call it Class Survey because that's what we last did in class. Write some very simple instructions. Read about Bobby and complete the chart about you. Okay, we'll add the attachment, class survey. And while that's uploading, I can just show you what it is. They read about Bobby, what she likes, doesn't like, is good at, etc. And they write their own one. That's uploaded now, so we'll assign it. And you can assign it to as many groups as you want. I'm just going to assign it to the kids. Select a due date. I'll select tomorrow. You can lock that date if you want them to hand in the homework by that date. If you don't mind if it's late, leave it unchecked. And I would add it to the grade book so you can keep a record of their progress. Assign it. And you'll see it's appeared on the page. It will look slightly different on the student's page, but it'll be very clear nonetheless. If you want to add a new post, it's very simple. Just click here. And I'm going to post a picture from when the kids were quite small. Add the attachment. You can also add links to YouTube videos, whatever you want. Here we are, it's uploading, it's ready, so I'll just post it. And it usually comes in, here it is. So it comes in second for some reason, so you just go here and put pin post. And that ensures it's the first thing they see when they go on the site. So this was a group of them when they were very little. And picking up on that animals theme, we could create a quiz. You can do it here, or you can do it here, which is a new feature and much quicker. So we'll do that. Okay, so you can choose your question type, multiple choice, sequencing, la la la. I'm going to choose true or false. You can choose the format. In true or false, it's just a card format. And here you type your items. So I'll go with some true, false animal questions. Dolphins sleep with one eye open. Is it true or is it false? It's actually true. So you mark the correct response, you'd add more questions, and when you're ready, finish. Now we give it a name, animal quiz. I'm just doing it for my group now, but you could make it public and share it with all teachers on the network. You can choose a timer if you want to make it more challenging. Let's say 10 seconds per question. You don't need to fill this in unless you're going to make it public and want teachers to be able to find it. And then just press save. And it's now saved, so let's try it, see what it looks like. You see how quick it is. Here we go, 3, 2, 1. Dolphins sleep with one eye open. What do you think? I'm not sure. What do you think? So they could decide they could play in pairs or on their own. True, it's true. Okay, I got 5 points. So these are just invented names to show you what it would look like. So we'll come out of there. You can make as many as you like. Another useful feature is here, the folders. If you go to folders, you can create and name as many as you like in order to organize the material on your site, which will also all be stored in the library up here, but I prefer to do it by class. So for example, here in videos, you can see I've put in some videos that could be of interest. This how-to site is very interesting. And if you want to put a new one on, it's very easy. New, either a file upload, if you've got it, a link to a YouTube. Again, you can add what you like there in those folders. To go back, just click there, and there you go. You can look in games too. Members. Here in the list of members, you'll see that you can share automatic class updates with parents by connecting them to students. So this is an option to add the parents into the site. Another thing I like to do, we'll go to a different class for a change, is to keep a class record as I'm in class. I would open this up and type what we're doing, so that any student who was absent will be able to do it in their own time. If you're doing this, you may need to use the refresh button up here to ensure that the site keeps up to date with you. Okay, so here we covered some difference between past simple and present perfect. I put up some links to the games they can play at home to catch up, and another game that we'll look at later, Bamboozle. So this can be very useful today. We talked about dogs. The students had a discussion about the pros and cons of having a dog, and they had to add to it for homework the advantages and disadvantages. And again, you can put a nice video link. Okay, well that's the main points covered. You can find more detailed tutorials online if you Google Edmodo tutorials. Hope that was helpful.
All right, so Edmodo is one of those really great learning management systems. If you're a teacher who's got repeated number of classes, and very often if you've particularly got batches of the same ages running across different days, then you can use Edmodo to, of course, create a repository or create your bank of all your work. And a lot of it then you can piecemeal out or you can add it to each and every class that you need, or choose maybe not to do it with a particular class if you feel that they don't need it. So a learning management software is quite essential in these days. Of course, I would tell you that perhaps the most rudimentary way of doing that is to use something like a Dropbox, where you've got all your material online or a cloud. But using additional management software such as these not just help you keep all your material together, but they have a lot of inbuilt functionality and dynamics like quizzes and games and trivia and puzzles, and they can randomize things up and mix it about with the same set of facts and throw up newer quizzes and so on. So it becomes an easier tool to use, particularly as you start to grow your teaching practice and have many more classes at different ages, that you've got all your material under one roof. And there might be days when you perhaps do not have time to sufficiently plan every element of the lesson, but you could use material which you had already curated earlier, if you believe it will lend itself to a particular class, that you can immediately just tap and have that. Of course, software such as these also have a great amount of social interactive abilities. So it's possible to link it to social media pages. If you want to also just network within your community of teachers, like we do over here. And of course, you can also share elements and tips and so on and so forth with parents on a periodic basis, so that parents are also in the loop. So this is a little bit about learning management software, Edmodo. Which brings us now to the third part, which is adapting materials. So, of course, we often feel as teachers that when it comes to using materials, that we need to reinvent the wheel, so to speak, but we don't have to really do that. One must keep in mind that when you're going to be teaching online, it's not just the time that you put in online in teaching, but it's also the prep time. And it's sometimes important to be able to use materials by just a little bit of tweaking and software to be able to generate a whole new set just by using technology. So hence you can get students to work collaboratively with things like Google Docs or Microsoft Teams in breakout rooms. You must also think about how the activity would work and what needs to happen for it to be successful online. So very often it's not just about giving the learners an activity, it is about dotting the lines both leading up to the activity and leading out from the activity to something which will be perhaps progressive or the next step in your teaching. I would like to share this website link with you, and I will do that as soon as we get in at the end when I can post links. But just to share this particular website over here, I'm going to just click on it. I'm going to just give me a second as I share this with you. So here you can see this is a website that basically has a lot of teaching strategies, and there might be times when you are looking for newer ideas or you want to try something new, that it's categorized already. So requiring students to do research. So here you can see what all to cover in a session like that, explaining the concept of plagiarism, and then using various other online tools like a readability test and a Lingro tool. So there is a lot that good teachers around the world have helped share their pool of knowledge and resources. And that's what we try and do over here as well, is empower all of us to be better teachers so that we can help take this to our learners in, of course, this very new environment. So this is with regards to various teaching strategies as you can see, there are a whole host of options that you have before you over here. So, okay, I'm just going to go back to my earlier presentation. Just give me a moment, please. Oops. There you go. All right. So this is with regards adapting materials. And I want to take you through some of the kind of ways in which you can do this. So let's look at a particular one which deals with listening activities. So this is a listening activity that you can easily adapt and personalize it for your students. You can put a picture of, in this case, a lovely looking margarita pizza on for reference. And here you can then ask students on a piece of paper to write out definitely or probably 4 words that you are going to use while you will be talking about the picture. So this way, they firstly become predictive learners in the sense that they're guessing to see which words they feel will definitely be associated with the picture, and what are the surrounding words you may use in the probably section. So the students basically try and predict the words that they're going to hear or that you're going to use while talking about this particular picture. So now it's obvious, of course, that you as a teacher will have to prepare on the basis of the picture that you're about to share. But this way, students are, of course, very attentive because they're hanging on literally to every word that will come out of your mouth. And of course, you can make it fun by giving points. Maybe students get 2 points for every word that you've definitely used, and words that they thought that you would probably use. So this way, it also helps build the natural vocabulary, because by looking at a picture, they're able to immediately associate words with that particular picture. And then, of course, as a follow through, you can perhaps get them to use their words that they thought you would definitely use by asking them to explain it from their perspective. So this way, it's a lot of collaborative learning as you go along in the classroom. Of course, at higher levels, students can do this themselves. And a good way is for one student to present a talk every week, and for other students to be able to try and use these listening activities vis-a-vis a whole host of topics. So it could be food, it could be, the next time it could be perhaps talking about money, or it could be talking about travel, or it could be talking about the weather. So this way, it truly builds on the communicative ability of the learner on a range of topics that you so choose to incorporate. Another idea that you could perhaps use is to build vocabulary online with online mind maps. And over here, we've mentioned a website that allows you to do it, which is called Bubble, spelled BUBBL.US. And this, you have the option to either sign in, or it's the option to also proceed without necessarily signing in. Of course, almost every tool that we share with you is completely free. So there will be obviously not just the free versions. Some of them will also offer you a freemium version, which will allow you to essentially pay and add in a little more functionality. But all that we're sharing with you today is completely free. So this is something that you could use. Online mind maps are a great way to get learners to literally free think, in a manner of speaking. And also this way, what happens is that you're not just brainstorming in a traditional way, like if you say food, all right, but you as a teacher can perhaps give them pathways to actually explore their thoughts. So when one talks about food, you talk about organic or farm-fed produce, or you talk about foods that someone likes and doesn't like, or foods that perhaps have allergies, or foods that are high in a particular vitamin. So you can actually help create lines of thinking by creating some sort of a rough template through a mind map, and then students can go and build on to that. So bubble.us is one such tool, and it's easily shareable online. You can post it, of course, to your LMS like Moodle, so that it's available for future reference and with future students as well. Now, another very interesting way of keeping engagement and of assessing how well things are going in our classrooms, both by way of progress as well as by way of choice of activities, is to consider using polls. Now, almost every software kind of has, or every broadcasting software has some element of polls built into it, or built into the functionality. But you can also use independent polls. So I'd like to share this last video, which will kind of end today's session, which talks about how to create polls.
Hi everyone, so I'm going to start off this small presentation about using polls in the classroom. There are a few different applications available for conducting polls. Some of them are free. So with Zoom Pro, you have to have the paid account in order to use polls, and also with MS Teams, you have to have a certain level of membership account before you can use polls which are embedded within the software. If you don't have those, like I don't, there are lots of other options available to you. Personally, the one I'm most familiar with and I've had the most success with is Polev, although colleagues of mine also have used and are keen on the functionality of the other ones that I've displayed here. If you just Google any of them, all of these apps have their own how-to and introductory videos for you to watch to learn how to use them. But first, let's have a think about why are we using polls? What can we use them for? So obviously for checking comprehension, you know, after a reading exercise, you could put the questions into multiple choice format and create a poll out of those. We can use them for icebreakers, finding out about student expectations, and certainly at the end of every lesson, gathering feedback. It's a really quick and easy way to get feedback from your students on the content that's been dealt with in the class. They promote student interaction because you can get them reacting to each other's responses in the poll. It encourages collaboration, provides an opportunity for reviewing content, and it certainly maintains student engagement. A lot of online teaching is happening, and it has really come to the fore that in order to keep students engaged and focused, they need to be actively engaged in doing something every 5 minutes. So introducing polls in different formats throughout your lesson will certainly help to keep your students engaged. So let's have a look at Poll-Ev. So when you Google Poll-Ev, this is the screen that will open up. This is where you'll get to, and all you have to do is sign up for a free account. They do have a paid option, and once you've signed up for your free account, then you will have the opportunity to start creating your polls. Before I show you how to create a poll, here are some of the polls that I've already created, and the responses are shown here there's a history of all the polls you've ever done. So, for example, what experience do you have using Zoom? This was one question I gave to a group of people, and they had to respond by writing their experience. And it comes up a bit like a WhatsApp chat or a Facebook chat with different students. Once they've inputted their response, they just appear on this page. The ones I've done have all been embedded in PowerPoint. So you do have to go, so you will have to download the Chrome add-in in order that you can add a poll into your PowerPoint as you make it. And I'll show you how to do that in a moment. So if we look at the PowerPoint again, you can see Poll Everywhere add-in. I've already uploaded it, so it appears here. So if I create a new poll, click Poll Everywhere, add new activity. I have to sign in, and then you will end up in a screen like this again. So I want to create a new activity. Now, they do have a lot of activities that are already available in template form. So you can have multiple choice where you put in a question and then you can add the options that you want. You can even add extra options. You can get your responses in the form of a word cloud, which will appear immediately on the screen as the students respond. Question and answers, clickable images. There's lots and lots of different things to choose from. So let's have a look at creating a word cloud. Here's one I created earlier. What has helped you get through the last few weeks? And we would just click create. Now, this is what will appear on the PowerPoint screen. The first thing I want to do is change the visual settings because I think black and white is quite boring. So you can play around with this and you can choose how you want the responses to come. As a text wall, as a word cloud, as a cluster, as a spotlight. So I want to change the colour, some nice Trinity colours. The font is fine. I want the voting instructions, so what the students have to do. I want those to appear up here. Okay, that way when it comes onto my PowerPoint screen, we can see, the students can see exactly how they have to respond. So I'm just going to save that. So you can see you would instruct your students to go to pollev.com on another device, / and then the computer will generate your ID, and that's what will appear here. Now, I don't want students to be able to text me, so I'm just going to turn off text messaging. And then you can also test it to see if you like it. So I'm just going to activate this poll to respond by clicking activate. And I'm going to put in, I don't know, coffee, submit, music, submit, my friends, submit. And as you can see, the word cloud appears. That's just one way of collating answers. You can also get answers from, if we go back to my activities, you can get answers by creating graph forms with the percentage. Or you could have, I mean, there are so many different options. You really just have to play around with it to see which one is most suitable for the context that you need. And that's it. So that will appear in your PowerPoint. And as the students respond, It's simultaneous. The responses will appear on your screen. Reports, anything that's got this little diamond beside it, unfortunately, they are only available in the paid versions. To be honest, I don't think you really need them, but if it's something you choose to do, then that's fine. As I say, you can do polls in Zoom, you can do them in Teams, you can do them in lots of different platforms. For me, this is the easiest and works quickest and best. So hopefully you have fun playing around with Polrev and that your students enjoy it too.
All right. So as you can see, these are all very engaging ways to interact with our learners and keep the excitement going in a classroom by, of course, giving them additional functionality to use with regard to learning within a particular context. And of course, you've got to love the fact that a lot of it has already been pre-done by teachers who have shared resources. So the big advantage with using tools such as these is they come preloaded, so to speak, with a lot of content, which you as a teacher can already almost immediately use in your classrooms. So this is a great way of adding a little variety to your classrooms. So this brings us to the end of today's session. Just a quick recap of what we touched on today. In lesson planning, we use the Pomodoro technique. My apologies, it's misspelled over here, but it's the Pomodoro technique of setting a timer. In lesson staging, we looked at screencasting, and one particular tool that we looked at today was Loom. Creating an educational network, we looked at the learning management software of Edmodo. And of course, in adapting materials, I shared with you the link to research of adaptation strategies, and I will post that in the chat just now. And then, of course, additional ways in which you can adapt materials through learning listening strategies and to vocabulary online mind maps. And of course, finally, to using polls. So this is what we did today. Just to give you a heads up of what we'll be touching on tomorrow, we're basically going to be looking at interaction. All right, so this is an important element of keeping the dynamic flowing between our classrooms, or rather between us, our learners, and of course taking sometimes what's happening in one classroom and being able to put it into another classroom, either directly or by changing the context to what that classroom needs. So a lot of very, very interesting tools that we've uncovered today. And of course, we have a lot more to look forward to tomorrow and the day after.